How often is it you can say that Australia have been absolutely dismantled in a World Cup game? Well, that day was today because South Africa, they've made some statement, all right, and you're watching the match review on cricket.com with me, Avnish Hegde, wearing, of course, the South African green. And as you can see, Somesh and Nikhil Popat. Som, how are you? Because have you called correctly, or shall I remind you of that?
I did. I mean, like I that break that I took to actually go and check what I have written. It said South Africa. I said South Africa. It turned out to be South Africa. Worst possible day for Australia on all fronts: bowling, batting, fielding. Even technology did not go in their favor. Umpiring decisions also, when actually there was technology to support their claim, umpire thought differently. So I mean, how often you have a day where you can't even point out a single Australian player who had a good day. One might say Maxwell, but then again, he's more of a batter who can bowl. So if he's not producing with the bat, then you can't really count whatever he does with the ball.
Nikhil, do you agree? Because the way that South Africa have got this win, it tells me a couple of things. One, that they, of course, joined New Zealand and India at the top of the table, which we'll show you in just a bit. But Australia, man, I mean, surely there are better things coming their way this World Cup, or do you think it'll get worse from them?
Yeah, you don't want to write off Australia just as of now, but I just feel there are too many things that look very off with them. You don't get so many drop catches for starters. Six drop catches. I don't remember the last time I saw Australia field this poorly in any game, even if it's a friendly. So again, it can't be that they are tired. They've been a lot of them have been resting, and it's a fresh unit. So maybe there's been a lot of talk about the captaincy. There were talks about Cummins ko बिठा के Smith को captain बनाओ. Again, a lots to ponder there, but again, isn't the Australia that we've been used to seeing. And again, this is not nostalgia. This is just efficiency in terms of what you usually expect from an Australian side.
The fair amount of segments is always on the match review on cricket.com, lads. So let's get to the first one, which is, of course, the turning point. क्या है turning point zoom? Because what is happening, bhai?
Usually, for something to turn, there has to be some bend in one direction. This game never, for a single ball, came in the Australian court. So, I mean, turning point of the game is pretty much the ball won itself. A lot of things had to work out for Australia. We pointed out that Zampa needs to have a good day. He didn't. He bowled pretty quick, pretty flat. He was afraid of getting hit. And this was not a wicket where he should have been that afraid. He just played the names rather than playing the situation or playing the surface. We saw what Maxwell did. Although Maxwell was quick himself, but this is how he bowls. He was still at least giving the ball some loop. Zampa basically bowled how Gurkirat wants Chahal to bowl at times in T20s. So, you can't do that. I mean, this is there are two surfaces where Australia needed Zampa to fire. He has not fired in any of them. So yeah, that was the first part of the first innings. Of course, I mean, with Cummins, I've been saying this for a while, and it is not rocket science anymore. It is a situation where a lot of IPL teams find themselves in when they appoint an overseas player as their skipper. कि भाई drop भी नहीं कर सकते और team में भी नहीं ले सकते. That is the situation which Australia find themselves in. Now they've appointed Cummins the captain. So that was pretty much it on the first innings. Second innings, it just never happened for Australia. I mean, they were never in the chase. Marsh once again batted like a player who, if unless and until the wicket is really flat and the ball is coming gun barrel straight on his bat, it just seems like that he's out of options. So from then on, Australia never turned up.
Yeah, they just didn't turn up, Nikhil. And even I was thinking, fine, 312 with that batting order, they can kind of get off to a good start. But was it that Ngidi first spell which really derailed their chase altogether?
Yeah, I think if you want to maybe not call it the turning point, I think the stark difference between the two sides were the first 10 overs. You saw the first 10 overs for South Africa with the ball and the first 10 for Australia with the ball. You hardly saw there were a few couple of there were a few plays and misses and stuff, but it didn't look difficult for South Africa to survive for a longer period of time. With with Australia batting, you saw the ball was stopping on Warner. He was trying to force it, and then he eventually found the fielder. Same with Marsh, as Somesh said, he had a couple of hacks. Both found mid wicket in there. He's trying everything, and they were just caught in the crease by a very good first spell from Lungi and Giri. And whatever little chance those Smith boundaries gave, that LBW, I mean, I haven't seen. I've seen a lot of crazy LBWs. Famous is of that Shan Masood Yorker seaming away just at the last moment, and this probably is right up there. It hit him almost on leg stump. I mean,
Yeah.
not even on. It felt ke this should definitely be missing, if not worse umpire score. But it was just not. It just summed up their awful day with bad ball and everything, maybe in the field as well.
Speaking of summed up, let's take a look at the match summary then, guys, because it is a dire picture for Australian fans. 311 for 7 playing, 177. And Quinton de Kock will pick the bones about his knock and how he's been in fantastic form. And, of course, not to forget Aiden Markram getting another valuable 50 under his belt. And from a South African bowling perspective, Rabada getting the wickets, 3 for 33, and Maharaj 2 for 30. And not to forget Shamsi as well, getting his first couple of ODI wickets in a World Cup contest. Right, lots of comments coming through, of course, and they're being heckled at these Australians, of course. Santosh Urpa saying South Africa paces bowl perfect length and maintain consistency. Santosh, I'm hoping that you're having a good night, because 2 defeats for your team, man. And I know you're an Australian fan because I saw you outside Chennai. Chichan going on to say, so happy to see such a pathetic Australian team. And our Earth is best saying Maxwell days are numbered, which is quite ridiculous. And there's more, because Nikhil Baiju going on to say, heavily bat first pitch, Australia not playing smart cricket. They look confused without Travis Head. No matter how bad Green is, they're nowhere near as pointless as Stoin is. Right, I have to ask you guys one more question, because essentially, what do you make of Australia going ahead in the tournament now, Som? Because do they now take that big call of dropping Pat Cummins and then bringing in Steve Smith? They can do that. Will they do that? Should they do that?
I don't think they should do it. Not that won't send the right signals. Them dropping their main keeper after the first game itself is a very questionable decision. I mean, it's like it was just the first game of the tournament. I mean, all these. If you're so unsure of him, then why begin the tournament with him? I mean, what does one game tell you? So they've already made one call which is not very Australian like. It's already making them sound a bit confused. This will be a very, very big call if they choose to do it, because I'm not convinced that Sean Abbott how much impact will Sean Abbott end up having if he comes in for Pat Cummins, but it'll be rocking the boat a bit too much. On the other
This,
hand,
yes, no, sorry, continue.
just
I'll add later.
just on to the fixtures bit. These are the two teams they lost the World Cup game to in 2019 as well. Although these are not the two teams they played in the first 2 games. They played, I think, India to begin with, but South Africa at the very end. So this time around, they had to play both these teams in the first 2 games. Australia can still potentially go on and win rest of the 7 games. Out of those, I think 2 would be slightly tricky because they'll be toss focus games. One versus Pakistan in Bangalore, which I think both teams would like to chase, and the same goes with against England in Ahmedabad, because what happened to England against New Zealand, even they would want to chase in that game. But on the bright side, England do not have a slow left-arm bowler which can trouble the Australians. So I think not all is lost on Australia. The tough 2 games are out of the window. They're not going to play on these tricky wickets again. They are playing in Lucknow again, but that is against Sri Lanka, who themselves are struggling to put together a bowling attack. So I still think that Australia have a better chance than any other team would have had after such 2 defeats against 2 sides which more or less look set to qualify.
Nikhil, before I get your thoughts, so you mentioned those 2 games there. What about New Zealand versus South Africa and Pune? Is that a tricky game for them as well?
But this New Zealand.
Oh, you're talking about Australia. My bad. I was just
yeah.
getting carried away with some of the Australian comments. Nikhil, jump in here, because do you honestly agree with Anand, the fact they can turn this slide around?
Yeah, they can. I think the bit is, if you look at the next few fixtures that they have, you'll probably assume that okay, you'll have to go by the logic that okay, Sri Lanka and Lucknow, you expect them to bat better, definitely bat much better than what they have today, and they should be able to do that. Bowling also better. So that is the Sri Lanka game taken. You have Pakistan in Bangalore. Again, a washout will not help. So that is still a tricky game for them. इसके बाद they play Netherlands, who you feel they should definitely see through. New Zealand in Dharamshala. That should the two tough games, two easy games, and then you have still playing them with England and Afghanistan. So it is three still good games that they have where you feel they should straight away win, and three games that you feel okay, if they get their stuff right, they should be able to see through. So even after these two losses, you still see them getting 5 wins because you have Afghanistan, Netherlands, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka to play. So those wins will still keep them afloat. But I think my biggest worry or thing is, I think they have to get Smith more involved because I feel even with this bowling attack, they missed a lot of chances, firstly in the field, but also usage of players. I mean, it is something that I always keep harping on. Why would you not give Stoinis more than 2 overs? How does it help you that you are only going to rely on certain individuals to give you the breakthroughs? And at the end, he's giving himself 1 over, Stark 1 over, and Hazelwood. That is not the time. I mean, it's okay. The game is already almost gone from your hands by then. So I just feel in terms of trying to break that monotony, they have to get the leadership group, whatever they call it, more involved. That Smith, we saw him captain against India very recently before the IPL, and those tactics, field placements. Again, these may look very overrated, but when you see something like this happening, where you're just waiting for things to happen, I think those things just add up even more. That we've seen quite a few captains now who are just waiting for things to happen. Okay, okay, now this is done. Okay, let's get this guy. Let's try and only get the main guys back. But you had Stoinis. The ball was gripping a bit for everyone. How do you not use Stoinis? And if you played him as an all rounder, you have to make any good use of him.
Which is
Funny that Nikhil says that because in the first 15 overs, like Pranav Anand actually is pointing out in comments, they bowled 7 bowlers. Shubh was going mad in his block. Ki, bhai, kar kya rahe ho? But then after that, they just forgot that they have other options. And Nikhil rightly said, I mean, there was one comment here where, Stoinis was picked on. But then the point is, Stoinis game में था ही नहीं. मतलब he was given just 2 overs to bowl. He got a very rough decision. So, I mean, can't really judge Stoinis from this game at all.
Bilkul. And also the thing is they used 7 bowlers because they bowled poorly in the first inning. So they had to go to people because he was always desperate. Then, ke, "Arey yaar, let me get 1 wicket somehow," and they would have already gotten a few wickets had they just held on to their catches. So even Stoinis in his very first over got Bavuma to top edge one, which Sean about I think dropped in the deep. So I mean, he's also creating chances for you. How is it not enough for you to give him more run with the ball? So, because as Santosh says, they have been using Green that way. So, what is stopping them from using Stoinis? But if Stoinis is not fit, then so you are opening a different can of worms.
And cricket fans are not blind. I think the guys in the chat also going on to say Cummins is the weak link. Shaunak Ghosh saying Cummins is nowhere near where he's in the test match cricket scheme of things. He's overrated in limited overs. Cricket, only Hazelwood is the best across formats. They're not dropping Iga. I think he's injured, right? Otherwise, they would have loved to have him over here. And Harun Ekbal Som going on to say, is Zampa's form a cause for concern? Because all wrist spinners have struggled so far in the World Cup, except that game in Chennai where Kuldeep was great. So how do they really put the pieces back together? Because they don't have another spinner even in their bench. They have a traveling reserve in Tanvir Sangha. So how do they kind of shuffle their cards now?
See, more than form, he just has to look at the pace at which other spinners are bowling. Look at how Keshav Maharaj bowled. His speed was 10 km/h fewer than both Australian spinners. And look at the purchase he got under lights when people are actually saying that the dew kicked in. So imagine Zampa bowling. I mean, I'm not saying you need to bowl slower all the time. You just need to have that option. My mind goes back to the way Santner dismissed Colin Ackerman in that day. I mean, you can say that weaker team, but Ackerman was looking great. After having been hit for a few boundaries, Santner actually went a little slower and wider. So oftentimes you see this, that bowlers who are, have that wicket taking mindset often go slower and not quicker. But today you can clearly see, even when Zampa was brought at the death just because there was an extra fielder at the boundary, he was darting the ball in. And that one time when he actually bowled a loopy one to Makram, it almost missed the fielder at long on. So he needs to be a little brave. I mean, these are the conditions which are made for him. अगर यहाँ brave नहीं रहोगे, then what's the point of representing your country in such a big occasion?
Yeah, and also just to not have people confused, we say Chahal isn't bowling quicker, but he's bowling too slow. But Zampa is not bowling slow. So the point is, you have to beat the batter on that very
Yeah.
given day. If the batter is starting to predict you, that's where you have to beat them, and that's where you have to have the option. So for Chahal, he has to have the option of bowling a few quicker ones to surprise the batter. And for Zampa, it has to be other way around. You move the pace just in vary the pace enough so that you are able to create more chances. At this point of time, Maxwell is creating more chances as opposed to Zampa, and it's not a good place to be in if you are the lead spinner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's also about the situation. At times the situation is that you can't afford to go for runs, and at times the situation is that you need to pick wickets. With this South Africa batting, actually, if you think about it, the South African tail got exposed as that's a little towards the end. Had there been a couple of more batting options, they could have scored even 330. So I mean, all Zampa needed was to pick a couple of wickets there in the middle overs by being a little braver, giving the ball loop, trying at least to bowl slow and enticing the batter to hit. Maybe they would have tried and maybe they would have mistimed it. And for a change, maybe an Australian catcher would have caught the ball. You never know.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's really surprising to see Australia drop that many. By the way, you guys have both alluded to the innings progression. You guys should check all of those funky stats out on the cricket.com page right now, the live blog, if you guys are following us in terms of written content. Lots of questions coming through. Please like this video, all you lovely chaps in the comments as well. And Varun Venkateshan is not holding back because he's saying, can you answer this? Does Pat Cummins' performance as a bowler so curtailed due to captaincy duties? Also, should Australia try Inglis as an opener? Answer that first part of the question because a lot of people are just heckling Cummins right now.
It's not easy being a bowling captain, and that's why there are too few bowling captains anyway. Because I mean, you have to take care of your own. See, captains are more in the game when they're in the field. If when you have batting captains, the captain can focus on his batting, and then others can do their job when they're batting. And when the team is out fielding, he's pretty free. But for the bowling captain, he's literally doing his primary skill as well as trying to see what bowling changes I can do, counting the overs of other bowlers, trying to remember all the matchups, trying to understand the fielding position and whatnot. And Pat Cummins and Australia are not even England, where they are being provided with some symbols and signals as to what the correct matchups are. And here's where Nikhil's point makes a lot of sense, that they need to figure out a way to involve Steve Smith and David Warner a lot more. I think, just from my observation about Australian cricket or my study about Australian cricket for the past couple of years, David Warner was also in the running for being the captain, and he himself opted out because he was being put to a very, very extreme sort of a trial to see if he's fit for it. But then in a hurry, Australia just went on and appointed Cummins the captain because he was the easier option. In hindsight, I think even they would feel that this has not been a very wise decision, not just because Cummins himself does not walk into this ODI side, which he actually doesn't, even though he's a great test cricketer. Secondary, just the point where in a limited overs game, the captain has to be, has to think on his feet a lot more. In test cricket, there is still a lot of time where you can just you can wait for messages to come in and whatnot. But in ODIs or in white ball cricket, time is even more curtailed. So appointing Cummins as the captain has never been a wise move, and we have been calling that out right from the time it was being done.
There will be, of course, lots of noise coming from down under, I'm guessing, because this is the first time, ladies and gentlemen, Australia have lost 4 consecutive World Cup matches, which is absolutely unprecedented in their history. And it makes you think about South Africa, which we'll talk in just a bit. But speaking of a big defeat for Australia, this is the heaviest in terms of a World Cup, 134 runs against South Africa. The previous one was 118 runs to India in Chelmsford 40 years ago in that famous World Cup that we remember too well. Nix, I just have to ask you about the toss, because in hindsight, in retrospect, it's always easy to look back. Australia won 2 tosses but losing 2 games. In fact, teams winning the toss, if I remember correctly, have now lost 8 of the first 10 matches this World Cup. So what does that tell you? And do you think it's a good thing to lose a toss in the World Cup now?
That would be good for starters, but I think it just tells you how difficult and why I have been, and many of us have been harping about getting conditions right, and why they are going to be very tricky across both innings, because at many venues you've seen very, very different characteristics of venues. And like you saw in Hyderabad, one day it was a very flat day, one day it was turning a lot. Now today in the first innings it was stopping a bit. uh, Under dew, you expect it to get better. It did get better. There was a lot of dew, but by the time the team had lost a lot of wickets. So I think it also goes back to the point that a lot of these units haven't played together. They were in our preview. We had written, in most of the SWOT analysis, that games in India since 21 or 22. Now that thing matters because you are playing at a time where conditions are different, and you need some intel on how this will behave in the next innings, so that you are able to just plan that, okay, if Australia thought, okay, dew will come today, they had to ensure whatever they do, they had to see off the first 10 overs. Okay, you see off the first 10 overs, lose minimum minimal wickets, that will put pressure on a side that is only using 5 bowlers. In 2 games so far, South Africa have not resorted to the sixth bowler. So you have not put enough pressure on that opponent in itself, because you just lost too many wickets in the first 15 to make any semblance to have any sort of comeback. So I think that is something many teams will try and figure out, because this will keep changing. I don't think this is going to be a constant, even with venues. Okay, Ahmedabad hai, to you should chase, because there is no guarantee. If people are getting new ball swing, you could lose four and the game might be done. You might only be playing catch up there. So I think eventually you will. I feel that if you are batting first, you just have to ensure you can control as many variables as you can. So in batting first, okay, I know so far all the teams in the last 10 have had troubles finishing well. So you just have to be mindful and pace your innings accordingly. That, okay, let's not think too far ahead. You can't control the dew, you can't control anything else. Just bat as per the merit and see where it takes you. Because at this point of time, I don't think anybody has any clue. Ke, ye karo, and you will be in a much better position to do that. So I think conditions will continue to evolve, and teams will have to stay on their toes to adapt to them. And I don't know if I made sense saying all of that.
No, no, absolutely. And it's food for thought indeed. Points table time then, gents, because let's just reflect what South Africa have done with those 2 points, because it makes you think how they can go on swimmingly in this competition. Australia down in the dumps, pretty much, just courtesy of the net run rate. They're not last, but they will definitely pick up the pieces. But South Africa, thanks to this win, they are, of course, top of the pops, and they'll sleep well tonight, 100%. Speaking of South Africa, Som, it's time to talk about the top performer, I should say. I should get my words right. And that is, of course, Quinton de Kock in this segment. Right, QDK was always going to be a threat with the bat, and he's proved his salt today again. I mean, just to reflect what he did out there, 109 of 106, and it feels like he's actually basking some glorious form. I mean, how much did you like his innings? Because I know he had the perfect foil in Bavuma, not striking at the similar strike rates he was going at, but still, what an amazing knock to take South Africa to a good total.
I think for me, it was one of the innings of the tournament. I was discussing this with Nikhil and Gurkirat when the knock was going on. And Rachin Ravindra is actually a good shot given the expectations. But I think he had better batting conditions, and the quality of bowling was also not that great. But yeah, I mean, like I said, for me, this is perhaps the knock of the tournament, and back-to-back hundreds. The best thing about Quinton de Kock is something that I observe very, I like observing this thing a lot, was the way he handled matchups. Now, I have some numbers here. Against Maxwell, he scored 11 runs of 26 balls. and he could afford to do that because he knew that he can actually you know gather momentum with other when he's facing others. So again, Zampa, Stark, Cummins, and Hazelwood combined, he scored 93 of 73. So he more than made up for it. He did not ultimately he lost his wicket to Maxwell, but it came at a stage where he had already made a significant impact. Thankfully, he did not throw his wicket away in order to playing at his ego and targeting Maxwell a lot, and which just showed in his numbers. So yeah, I mean, top knock.
You echo those thoughts because he looks really good at the moment. And how much should teams be worried about someone like Quinton de Kock? Because another 100-run stand, and it's too good to be true, even from a South African perspective, Nix.
I mean, as an Indian, we have had the worst of that in front of us when we saw him hit three in a row. And I think the one fear that I had then is still holds true, that when Quinton is set, you don't really know where to bowl to him, because he's so good that he's good over in the offside. He can hit the short ball well. He can go down in the V. He even has the reverse laps and scoops to hit you around. So when you have a guy who's that good and hitting the ball so well on a deck that isn't that great to batter, it just puts a lot of pressure on the bowling sides. And I mean, as Som said, it is definitely one of the top knocks for the World Cup, because it was the ease with which he was able to put them away. They went short. It wasn't. It was holding up, but still he was able to hit them very cleanly. So that is just again tells you how much maybe retiring from ODIs has helped him clear up his mind and just play that much more freely. Because at this rate, you wouldn't want him to retire the way he's batting. But maybe that is what is working for him. 2 games, 2 centuries, and he's looked $1 million. Hopefully, he can continue that going, because South Africa will need that. We talked about the same in the preview. Okay, when you are playing only 6 batters, you will need one of the top three to give you consistent 60, 70, 80s and higher scores. Only then will you be able to have Janssens and others coming in only in the last 5 hours. Else they might be in a lot more earlier, which you can't afford to have. You can't afford to have. So I think as long as he's not scoring versus India, I have no problem. Please keep scoring. Score 5-6 runs. I don't 5-6 runs. I don't mind at all.
Okay, they have, of course, Netherlands next, the South Africans, and then that all-important clash in Mumbai against England, which Som is absolutely looking forward to. Just on South Africa then, Som, we've spoken about de Kock, Markram, of course, getting the runs. But from a bowling perspective, what stood out? Was it Ngidi? Was it the spinners coming to the fore?
I think both Ngidi and Maharaj, I mean, they were basically the front runners in their respective departments. Although Rabada got a lot of wickets, that ball to Josh Inglis will actually make the best of the highlight reel.
Yeah.
So good that Rabada is among wickets. As I said in the preview, the last time Tabriz Shamsi played at Lucknow, he did not have a good day, but today at least he was able to take the final two to add to his tally. I still feel Janssen can be a lot smarter because he has all the ingredients, he has the height, he has the variations. At times, at times I feel he's like Arshdeep. He wants to bowl 6 different balls in an over and as opposed to Arshdeep with Janssen, you actually know what his strengths are. He's tall. We saw him when he made his test debut that back of a length can actually be very difficult. And on a wicket like this, that good length, back of the length, into the wicket, cutters were working fine. And he just wanted to, after that, he just tried to bowl some swinging deliveries. One of them went for 5 wides. And I was like, why are you doing it? When you know something is working, why pick something that is not broken? So that is where I hope he learns quicker because, Rabada will have his off day. Ngidi will have his off day, but I mean, if on a day, or South Africa wouldn't want to be in a situation where they are in a must-win game and all 3 pacers choose to have an off day on the same night. That will actually cost what can be potentially be a memorable World Cup for them.
Indeed. Now, lots of people predicting how quick Quinton de Kock will get out. Of course, India, they're already hinting that it could be Siraj indeed. Just to finish in South Africa next then, because what is the point of having such great wins in the group stage and then not really winning the competition? So can they now take this confidence and go ahead? Because it's a long tournament. And like I said, Netherlands, England next. Are we already kind of talking about them as a contender, or should we just hold our horses?
No, you should definitely hold your horses because I already said that they'll go and be part of the final. So I have already made them reach the final. So I definitely think they have the ingredients. But as Home said, this is still dependent on them hitting sides as a unit, which is something that did today again with the ball. So and as Home said, there are areas for Jansen to get better at, for Samshi to probably have a better return. Because again, I won't be too harsh because he was bowling when where Manas and Stark didn't were not interested to do anything else apart just playing time. So won't blame him for that. But on as surfaces start to slow down, his role will become very critical. And if Maharaj can continue to have that good run, they will just find more ways because Makram hasn't bowled yet. So there are things where I feel they can definitely get better. You have Kodzi waiting in the wings to use on maybe a deck like Pune or Venkat if they want to do that. So they have the resources, but just take it one game at a time and trust Babuma. That is my bottom line. Trust Babuma. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, Lord Temba, indeed. By the way, Pranav Anand, there is, of course, all those kind of things that you're asking for. It'll be available in even the morning feature, I'm guessing. They will, of course, pick the bones about it. Our writers, our top draw. And Rajesh, you've been suggesting his Australian 11. Lots of people suggesting their coaching tips to Australia, and it's always fun to see. And Sankar Pandey also going to say here after the Rohit Juglan interview, great work, guys. Australia is unwilling to play under Cummins. Thanks for subscribing. Tell people about it. And it makes me think about all you other people watching, like this particular video, and spread the word about cricket.com because we're definitely here to stay. And Australian fans, I sympathize with you all because you've got a proper pasting. Speaking of Australia, it's a big day tomorrow because of this. Because I have the pleasure to, of course, banter Sam Andian at 3 p.m. on the 13th of October. It's a Freaky Friday and it's a special showdown. You can get your questions in, of course, and we'll absolutely put them across to the great cricketer. We're going to ask them about themselves, how they've kind of gone on this journey and killing it in YouTube, and of course a lot of other generic cricket questions, and not to forget also previewing the India-Pakistan game with them. So that'll be a fascinating watch. It's available on the YouTube platform at 3 p.m. So jump in. It'll be a live show and it'll be good to see all you beautiful people out there. Right. Time to wrap up proceedings. Thank you, Somesh, and of course, Nikhil Popat. It's a good time to wrap up. We're just asking Som, what's his plans going ahead? Because I'm seeing you in Ahmedabad. Is that correct? When am I seeing you? And when is your flight from Bangalore, my friend?
I mean, I think we are having breakfast together tomorrow.
Oh,
no?
Super. No, we are. I think Akshay is behind the camera. I think we take off at 6 from Hyderabad. So we'll probably be in Gujaland at 8:39.
I'll take off at 7:30 from here.
Okay, super. So looking forward to seeing Somesh at the Sabarmati. Nikhil, we'll see
Wow.
you as ever virtually. But if I'm in Mumbai, I'll definitely come through and say hi to you, my friend. And all you lovely people, thanks so much. Jesus Christ. Stop it.
Maybe he's saying that he himself would be in Ahmedabad and would want to meet us. That is how I read this.
Okay, fine. Let's read it that way as well. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe if you guys are new and like this. Until the next time, it's a goodbye from us. And it's a big day tomorrow, like I said. So, of course, get cracking by pressing the bell icon. Until the next time, it's a goodbye from us. Take care and God bless.